Welcome to Flow State. I'm going to make a quick video and touch on the Kyle Rittenhouse thing because it's all anybody's talking about. I've not watched it at all, and I'm not paying attention to it for a number of reasons. One is that it's clearly that's a concrete, so I'm going to pause this until. Okay. Where was I? Okay. So clearly, the powers that be want people to watch this, right? They want us engaged in this. Well, I am not a fan of the powers that be, and I don't appreciate being distracted or manipulated or whatever they're doing with it. Why do they want people to watch this? I don't like it, so I'm not going to comply with that. I'm not going to help them out by giving them more attention to it. So that's the first reason. The second is that. What was the second? I had three things. I need to start making like little video notes so that I don't glitch out all the time. The second thing is that, well, and it's not really a second thing. They want us watching this. So the question is, why do they want us watching this? Well, the first thought I had was that they're distracting us from something, right? That's the easy answer. Then the next thought was, well, they're using this. I think that the situation is ripe to be exploited as sort of the right wing's George Floyd. The prosecution's bombing. It was clearly self-defense. Why has this case been so ridiculous and so covered and promoted the whole way through? And from the get-go, they were just all over this thing, the media. I mean, they're rubbing it in our face. So what's the agenda? Well, division's obviously one of them. Distraction, I'm sure, is one. But after this trial, and you've got all the people supporting Kyle Rittenhouse who are watching this shit going, "Oh my gosh, I'm so relieved. You know, there's no way they'll find him guilty now." After a whole trial of obviously he should not be found guilty, to then find him guilty and whiplash the whole right emotionally like that, or I mean, right for lack of a better word. I hate the right-left dynamic, but to whiplash over half the population that hard with something so ridiculous and overt and unjust. And then you've got the people, it's a shrinking, and it's a small amount, and it's shrinking, but the people who, the woke, the radical woke, you've got these hateful pieces of shit who are also have spent a trial kind of being resigned to the fact that, damn it, they're probably not going to put this poor kid in prison for years or for the rest of his life. He's probably gonna be allowed to defend himself from a mob of men, some of whom had guns, some of whom were, violent pedophiles with guns, whatever. This niche of people have accepted the fact that he's probably going to be found innocent for the same reason. So while the rest of us are getting whiplashed by the injustice of them finding this kid guilty, you're going to have these people behaving the way they do, which is characteristically aggressive and obnoxious, right? And that's just going to be fuel on the fire of the whiplash. You can toss these punks off against the general population, and hopefully, you know, I've said this before. I'm waiting for more false flags to start happening. Hopefully, you can get the normal American gun owner, and that's what they want, I think, is the normal American gun owner to turn on the government in a violent way that can justify them cracking down on basically anything patriotic, anti-government, or defense, or self-defense, right? But I think it's very likely that they'll try to shake up the Patriot as hard as they can and try to coax out some extremists, whatever that means. But if not, then for sure they'll just do a false flag themselves. I think that if Kyle's found guilty, and that there's a very good chance he will be, specifically because he should not be, then I think after that you will have some sort of a violent response from, you know, extreme right-wing militia, whatever, however they're going to label it. But be it real or fake, and it will probably be fake or at least a mixture of both. I think that will happen. It'll be part of the storyline. But yeah, you've got all the makings of George Floyd for everybody else who wasn't George Floyded by George Floyd. You know, you got the same arguments too. You got, well, he shouldn't have killed him. Well, he shouldn't have been there. Well, he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. You know, like, Kyle shouldn't have been there. George shouldn't have been there. He'd been told to leave. Kyle shouldn't have had a gun. George shouldn't have had drugs. You know, well, having drugs doesn't mean you deserve to die. Yeah, well, being where you're not supposed to be doesn't mean you deserve to die. It's the exact same objections to somebody getting killed. Like, legit or not, I think that there's a lot more legit objections to George Floyd's death than there were to any of the guys that Rosenbaum shot. I mean, watch the video, not the trial. Don't pay attention to the trial. Don't feed into that bullshit. But if you haven't seen it, watch the video from the shooting, the original one that came out like a year ago. Just watch that. It's like a 30-second clip. There's literally never been a more clear-cut case of self-defense ever. So the fact that this thing's getting dragged around so much it tells me that they're trying to agitate us. If this were about Kyle, if this were about the person specifically, they would have just fucked that person up legally and quietly, and there would have been no press. You never would have heard nothing about him. They do it all the time. There are whole secret prisons full of motherfuckers who the government just decided, you know what? You're a thorn in our spine. Rob Ulrich, maybe. That was kind of high profile, but they're more like Rob Ulrich. Free Rob. So yeah, that is something that I'm watching for. I hope that I'm wrong, but you know, we live in a clown world, and I guess the final sort of component of why I'm not watching the Rittenhouse thing is that it's a tasteless, it's a blood sport or a ritual sacrifice in my mind. So Kyle Rittenhouse, when he shot those dudes, he was 17, I think. So he's 18 now. This is an 18-year-old kid. All the fucking hyperbole and bullshit aside, the reality of the facts are, and it's plain as day to anybody who cares to see them. Anybody who doesn't know that what I'm about to say is the truth doesn't want to know that. The fact of the matter is that this is a kid, a child, who went to do something that he probably thought was cool and brave and right, you know, but he didn't plan to kill somebody. He didn't think he would have to kill somebody, and he didn't want to kill those people. He waited till the very last second to shoot. Like, they were on top of him, like stomping him before he shot. This was not an eager shooter. This was somebody who had no other choice in the moment. So, whether or not it was right or wrong for him to be there, that is sort of a moot point to me, because it's just trivial, right? Maybe he shouldn't have been there. Maybe he violated curfew, whatever. But he was definitely in danger. It was definitely self-defense, and you don't lose your right to self-defense. You don't lose your right to live because you're out after curfew. If you're out after curfew, that doesn't mean, well, anybody can just kill you then. But anyways, so we got this situation. We got people dead at the scene, and then we got Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, for those who don't know, I've had some run-ins with the law, and I've experienced being a defendant in a criminal case, and I cannot imagine being in Kyle Rittenhouse's shoes. Somebody who's never been. It's sort of like when I say that solitary confinement is torture, right? If you've never been in solitary confinement, you're probably gonna be like, yeah, but no, it's not, and that's reasonable. It is, and I was the same way, and I've spent 3 days in solitary. I can tell you, it is torture. It is torture. I don't expect you to believe me. It's just one of those things that you can't appreciate it until you appreciate it. So, that said, I was a 30-year-old nobody who was looking at 15 years worst case scenario, and realistically was looking at most likely 24 months. That was the probable outcome. It was a drug thing, by the way. It wasn't anything icky. This is a 17-year-old when it started. This is a 17-year-old little boy who is suddenly, the whole world is watching him. The whole world's watching him. He's looking at spending the rest of his life behind bars in prison, and he's got the whole world either hating him or loving him, treating him like a hero. You cannot. I can't imagine being that kid under that sort of mental strain, right? And then you got this and then that, and he's out on bond, and then it's the whiplash, the constant. The kid spent a year in constant terror and uncertainty and powerlessness. And again, this is one of those experiences. The experience of being in that sort of uncertainty and fear for your future for that duration of time, at that extreme of a level, I'd be very surprised if anybody can, even if anybody watching this is really going to have even experienced as much as I have, which I think gives me enough experience to not understand what it's like to be him. Because being that age going through this shit, wow, and having that sort of publicity and the sort of people want to kill him or they want to make him a fucking hero. It's just on so many levels. Nobody could ever be ready for that sort of mental, emotional pressure, but certainly not a kid. So the way I look at this situation is, people who are watching the trial this isn't news, right? There's no practical reason that people need to get a minute by minute, play by play, keep track of this trial, this case. It may be it may be of relevance to, say, gun owners or, to a lot of people, but it's not news that has any valid reason for this much attention except for entertainment purposes. This is a sitcom, or not a sitcom, this is a soap opera. So you've got the whole world watching for their entertainment what is essentially the torture, the mental torture of and destruction of a child by the state and the media. Everybody's being entertained by the torture of a child. People may not know that. Certainly people aren't sitting there recognizing that that's what they're doing, but that's what's happening. If you look up the effects of extended durations of fear, when people are put under fear for long periods of time, it's constant. It has not just psychological effects on people that are permanent. It has physiological effects. It affects the actual structure of your brain and how it grows and forms. This kid has been tortured. He will to death. I mean, like he will never be the same. If he gets off, he will never. It's not like, I mean, if he's found not guilty, you're gonna hear people saying, "We just shot those people and got off scot-free." No. This kid's been tortured for a year. He is permanently broken. I'm not gonna get my entertainment from watching the state break a kid. Psychological torture, the states. No, I'm not down with that. So I find it, kind of reprehensible. And I mean, I'm not accusing or trying to blame people who are watching it closely. I get it. I'm actually kind of surprising myself with my own position here on this one. This is a new sort of perspective for me. But, yeah, it's grotesque. It's grotesque what they're doing to this kid. He's never gonna get over this trauma or be able to, like, readjust to the world. That much time in that state of fear and that much publicity, and I mean, I can't imagine. Like, he's got to be insane. He may not show it, but I'm sure he's straight loony now. Something I noticed, just sort of my own observation, is that people who had spent 3 months seemed to be the cutoff. If somebody had spent 3 months or more in solitary confinement, they had a screw loose after that. I don't know why 3 months, but it seemed like if it was less than that, people could come out all right. But if anybody spent 3 months or more in solitary confinement, they kind of had a permanent kind of anxiety to them. Like a chained up dog that is untrusting and skittish, it'll bite you, but not straight up attack you, but kind of snap your finger because he's anxious. It's anxiety. Yeah. So I don't know how long exactly Kyle spent in solitary, but that's the solitary time that Kyle did is just one aspect of so many different sources of mental and emotional pressure that people can't even imagine. Nobody's experienced anything close. I've experienced being a defendant, not at that level. I was never looking at fucking whole life sentence as a 17-year-old kid. But I've been looking at prison time. I've been a criminal defendant. I know what it's like to be in the courtroom, and I think that some of the conversations I see about people speculating or arguing over whether or not they think that his crying was real or fake. It's asking the wrong question. Whether or not he was fake crying, that question is wrong. It doesn't fit the situation. The real question is he an actor or is he broken? If this is a real situation, a real case, and he's really a defendant, and this is a real court case, then I'm telling you, this there's not a person. He's just not. There's no way that he could sit up there and coldly fake emotions, right? He might be acting weird, but what's the right way to act under these circumstances? I mean, people just, the psychological profile that people are trying to paint of, was he faking? He's not remorseful. He's just, those are fake tears. He doesn't feel bad at all. Well, feeling bad, like, oh, I'm so sorry I shot that guy. That response in the situation is not one that's on the table. Because if this is really what's happening, and I do think it is, I think this is a real kid that they're really torturing to insanity. He's broken, and who knows? You can't expect a broken person to act in a non-broken fashion. So if you're trying to measure his responses, you're using measurements that don't apply here. You're trying to measure distance and hertz. If he is putting on a show and not, kind of blowing some smoke up your ass, if he's blowing smoke, then this isn't a real case. It's just a Hollywood stage, and all these people are actors. So that's my position. I think that yeah. Anyways, I've rambled long enough. This video is plenty longer than I intended it to be, but that is where I'm at on the Kyle Rittenhouse case. I have not watched a minute of it. I will not watch a minute of it, and I encourage anybody who agrees with me on my perspective here that you should also not. Find a better way to get your entertainment. I don't know, go stick a thumb up your ass or anything, I don't care. Like, subscribe, share.